Pittsburgh Steeler fans, it is time. What time is it? It's time to pull yourself out of the gutter and nurse that hangover. And who better to do it right after a draft weekend but Tony Defeo, Shannon White, and me, Bryan Anthony Davis. We are your hangover crew at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Yes, you are going to be getting a lot, and I tell you, a lot of draft coverage this weekend. This week, actually, because this weekend we had a whole heck of a lot of draft coverage. We had shows after every pick, either was a breaking news podcast or it was a roundtable. Then we wrapped up the whole day. So we are rested and ready to go, but we were all a part of that. And we're going to talk about whether you love the draft or whether you had to sleep off the draft. That's what the hangover is going to be about. And we'll help you feel better about it, or we'll just help you feel worse. What have you. You're not going to know how to feel about this class. I understand that, but we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to. These are lumps of clay, and you'll find out how they fit in the system. But first, Tony, what is going on?
I am doing fine, Bryan and Shannon. How are you guys on this fine Monday evening?
I'm doing good. I'm loving it. I'm glad the draft is over. I'm glad we have guys to get excited about or to fret about, no matter what. It just depends on what camp you want to be in. But
I'm seeing both in the live chat.
Yeah, I think the live chat is there's differing opinions, and I get it, and right. I respect each and every opinion. So that's really good. But of course, we're going to give you ours. And Shannon, I'm going to start off with you. What is your opinion of this draft?
I'm just really excited. You kind of knew they were going in that by all the signs they were going to take a quarterback. And I was shocked that Pickett was there. I really was, that they had the opportunity to choose between Pickett and Willis. And they went with the guy they knew. They went with somebody that they've had a relationship with for 5 years. They've seen him progress, grow as a young man. There's nobody to blame if he doesn't work out. They made that choice because they knew him better than anybody in the draft. So I'm really confident about that. Then they get the receiver. I was wanting Sky Moore, but when you look at there was quite a few receivers like Moore. I don't think it's good, but very similar slot receivers in the draft. But George Pickens is 6'3". If he hadn't hurt his knee before the start of the year, he would have probably been in the first round. So you're getting a first round value in the second round. And then they turn around and get Calvin Austin, who I've been watching since they picked him. The guy runs some great routes, incredible short area quickness. But, he's got that home run speed. So they filled a lot of needs. So I'm feeling a lot better about it. And, I'll give it overall a B+ grade. And it could be better than that. Pickett's the guy. If Pickett turns out to be as good as I think he can be, then the grade goes up.
Tony, what are your thoughts on this draft? Is this a hangover for you, or is this, man, I'm feeling good and I just can't wait to watch these guys in black and gold?
Well, this is always my favorite part of the draft year because after all the players are picked, that's when I get to really find out who they are and learn about them. And of course, I knew all about Kenny Pickett, and I'm just really happy that the first time they needed a quarterback in nearly 20 years, and they have the entire pool of quarterbacks in front of them when they pick a 20. If Pickett turns out to be the real deal, then talk about a stroke of luck, right? And that's what a lot of it is, luck. But I'm just happy that they went after a quarterback, because I think the more the draft process went on, the more I was convinced that they probably needed to draft a quarterback. And why not? You have the whole menu of quarterbacks sitting in front of you. You might as well go for it. And they picked the best of the bunch, at least on paper, as far as being NFL ready. So I like that. And they addressed the receiver room. They needed to really do that. And I think they did that with two fine prospects. Leal's one guy I just don't I don't get a feel for yet, because I mean all the talk about him is he's too small to play inside, but he's too slow to play outside. So I don't know what to make of him yet, but he certainly has the resume as far as what he accomplished at A&M. So you can see a plan through the first 4 picks, and then of course the bottom of the draft is some special teams help, and of course they have another young quarterback and the guy from North Dakota State. So I like what they did. I usually always do. I can't remember last time I didn't. Maybe since I was a teenager, and I can't even imagine having all these resources as a teenager now. I'd be in heaven. So overall, I love what they did.
Well, if that was the case, you'd be Andrew Wilbar, having all these resources and being a teenager.
I'm living vicariously through him, because I could tell that like he's really enjoying himself. I can't even imagine. I would flunk every class in college if I had all these resources when the draft was going on.
I don't know if he's really enjoying himself, because we had wellness checks on not only Shannon for the Sky Moore pick and for the whole not picking Willis for Andrew. A lot of people got really invested. I love Dave Schofield's approach when he tries not to fall in love way too much with a player, because they might end up being in purple. And I want to talk about purple real quick. And everybody's talking again about how the Ravens had a fantastic draft, and it looked like they did. But one of the things that the Ravens do, it's really interesting. They pick guys that everybody seems to know.
Right.
It doesn't seem like highly scouted guys. It seems like the name brands in the draft, and they pick. So right away, we're going to go ahead and give them a great grade. But some of those big names didn't transpire into greatness last season, and there's still time. This is a well-run organization. I'm not going to say that. Just we look at that, and we look at picking some guys that you're not familiar with the Steelers, and we've got a problem with it. But I will tell you this. None of you, very few of you, knew who in 2016 Javon Hargrave was. I actually did at the time. And in the 3rd round, everybody wanted that Andrew Billings. Right. They should have taken him with the 1st round pick. He ended up going in the 4th round. He was everybody's draft crush early because he was the next Casey Hampton. And here Billings is on the board in the 3rd in 2016. And I didn't tweet because I didn't have Twitter, but I started messaging to Jeff. Dave wasn't even here at the time. I was messaging with Jeff and some friends and said, hey, look out for this guy from South Carolina State. They're like, we have no clue who he is. There was another guy in recent years in a draft from South Carolina State, and now he is an absolute stud. Went in the 2nd round for the Colts on defense. Now nobody knew who he was. And there's some people that I'm sure Indianapolis fans saw this guy getting picked. Like, I don't know who he is. I have no clue who this guy is. But then they turn around and they're not going to trade him for nothing. He's their guy.
Right.
So that's just one of those things. They have scouting departments. We just listen to other people. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Like I said, nobody knew who Darius Leonard was. But I knew who he was because I saw some Steelers draft nicks say, hey, Steelers might even go for this guy, Darius Leonard. Would have loved if they would have gone for him. But we just don't know those things. Another thing about the Ravens draft that I want to bring up, and I know this is a Steelers show, but the reason I'm picking on the Ravens is they didn't get their guy. Their guy was Jordan Davis out of Georgia, who Philadelphia traded up and took right before them. So they lost their first guy off the draft board. Who they settled with was another good player, a guy that's I think is going to be great, Kyle Hamilton. However, the thing with Kyle Hamilton is that wasn't their number one pick, and they had to settle for the next guy off the board. Somebody traded in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's Hamilton or whether it's Davis, when you're picking at 14, you're going to get a pretty good pick.
Right.
You're going to do much better. The Steelers got their guy at 20. What would have you guys thought if the Steelers would have traded up to 15 to get Pickett? Would have you went nuts? Shannon?
Yeah, I didn't want them to trade up for a quarterback. I didn't want them to take a quarterback unless they felt like that could be the franchise guy. And they felt very comfortable with Pickett, and obviously they thought that he can be that. So I'm okay with that at 20, but I wouldn't have wanted to trade up, which now when you look at it, they didn't have to. So, but it definitely affects the value. We was talking today, the Ravens draft, actually, they had a ton of picks. I mean, it seemed like the whole fourth round was the Ravens. Every other pick was them. But their top 4 picks, Hamilton fell for different reasons. We'll see how, I think he's a free safety. We'll see where he ends up. But I think Linderbaum is overrated, and I've already said that. And I think that we're going to see, even with his technique and all, he is going to struggle with length and power because of how short his arms are. Some of the shortest arms in the NFL. And that usually doesn't translate well to the pro game. And then, I like the Travis Jones pick a lot because, I would have liked seeing him with the Steelers. So he was a really good one. And then they took the one guy out of Michigan, he probably ain't going to play this year. But he's a good value pick because, if he heals and gets back, he's going to be really good. But I think that their draft is overrated a lot because of what you said. They always go with named guys that is on NFL Network constantly. Everybody knows their names, so that's who they take. And everybody's like, oh, they had the greatest draft ever. If you look at this year, the Jets had a great draft, and the Chiefs had a great draft. And it wasn't just guys that were, big names. It was actually guys who fit their system and were great values. So I think that the Ravens draft, in my opinion, is a little overrated this year.
Well, I want to continue talking about the Ravens draft for a reason, because it all comes back to the Steelers. If you go to the 4th round, they took a punter in the 4th round. Mm-hmm. And they took that, and the Browns took a kicker in the 4th round. And then the other guys went off the board. So they had some intel that the guys they wanted to take were going to go to another team. And so they made those picks. If you think it's way too early, maybe way too early for Cleveland, but when you have 6 4th rounders like the Ravens did, and they had 6, mm-hmm. then, you're able to do something like that. But the Ravens chose that guy instead of, the Steelers picked late in the 4th because they didn't have a 4th round pick.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Their 4th round pick came courtesy of Bud Dupree. And that was at the end of that round because, that was a compensatory pick. If Bud Dupree plays more, that's a 3rd round pick. But he was the first 4th round compensatory pick. So that's how close he was to being a 3rd rounder. That kind of changes the draft. But the guy that the Ravens really coveted and did not take in time was Calvin Austin III. And the Steelers got him. You add him with Pickens, you get pretty excited about some of the firepower you have at receiver. Mm-hmm. So, Tony, I'm going to ask you real quick. That receiver room now, how do you feel about it on Monday as opposed to how you felt about it on Friday afternoon?
Oh, I feel much better about it. I mean, Deontay Johnson, he's I think he's a really good young player. And obviously Chase Claypool, he's shown some things. He needs to step up in year 3. And now you add these 2 guys to the mix. I mean, that's a lot of talent. And Pickens is, he has the ability to be a deep threat, but he also is a great and very tenacious combat receiver, from what I understand, from what I've seen. So you love that about him. And I love the fact that he came back so quick after a torn ACL. It could have been very easy for him to sit out last year, but he came back and became part of that national championship team. And then somebody like Austin, he's already being called an intriguing toy for Matt Canada's offense. And, one of those guys you can, quote unquote, if you get him out in space, look out. So I mean, I think they addressed the receiver room as well as you possibly could, considering what they lost in free agency. So I'm very happy with what they've done.
All right. I'm not intentionally picking on anybody, and I'm not going to bring up any names. But for those of you that don't love the Kenny Pickett pick, and you feel that because the next quarterback went in the 3rd round, I'm going to flat out and tell you that you're probably wrong. We're not going to know the answer, but you really can't trade down in that situation because the Steelers were looking at trading up for Kenny Pickett. They got him at 20, and they were happy at 20. But if they trade down, they risk not getting him. They risk a Darrelle Revis situation where they were all set to take Darrelle Revis in 2007 at 15. The Jets trade up from 16 to 14 with Carolina. They take Revis, and he's gone.
Right.
You know, and that's very possible. I don't think Pickett gets out of the 1st round. Shannon, do you?
No, like I said, I thought before the draft that Pickett would be the Saints' target. I thought they would target him because I thought he really fit their scheme. But when he got past them, I was like, I don't know if I would be concerned with it, trading up. And but I think he would have definitely went in the 1st, towards the back end of the 1st at least. So if they hadn't have got him there, I don't think they'd have got him in the 2nd. A lot of people are assuming that because none of the other quarterbacks went. But if you listen to everybody talk, they were saying that the reason the other quarterbacks didn't go because they wasn't pro ready and they all had issues of some sort. And the consensus was that Pickett was the most pro ready guy. So, and then of course the Steelers know more about him than anybody. So yeah, I don't think he would have got out of the 1st round.
Tony, he's going to be 24. That's Pickett who I'm talking about. He's going to be 24 in June. And Shannon just used a phrase, pro ready. And I think that is one of the big attractions of one Kenneth Shane Pickett here, Tony. And so my question to you is the fact that he's more pro ready, the fact that he had a lot of years at Pitt, does that age really matter here? And to answer the earlier question, do you think he gets out of the 1st round? And we can't say that, well, the other teams behind them weren't looking for a quarterback. That's not the case because there's so many trades in that draft.
Honestly, I think that because so many teams thought the Steelers were in love with Willis, and I did too. I thought they were going to take him. I think that may have influenced how this draft unfolded. I think if other teams thought the Steelers were interested in Pickett, I mean, like solely above and beyond any other quarterback, I think they would have been more aggressive in trying to draft Pickett in the 1st round because I think he clearly was the best quarterback, on paper anyway, and the most pro ready. So I think had they thought the Steelers were going to take Pickett, I think there would have been some, maybe, the Saints might have taken him. Who knows? I don't know, but he definitely wouldn't have made it out of the 1st round. As far as his age, these quarterbacks now, it's not like running backs. I mean, they can play up until 40 years old. We're seeing that a lot in recent years. Obviously Brady being the prime example, but even Drew Brees, Ben just retired at 39, or he was almost 40 when he retired. So, these quarterbacks can play a lot longer. If it was maybe a different position, maybe you feel differently about that. But a quarterback, no. I mean, not. I don't worry about that. And as far as him being pro ready, I like that because I think the Steelers, they're going to need somebody that can help them battle these other quarterbacks, not just in the AFC North, but in the entire AFC. It's loaded with quarterbacks. So the quicker they can find their guy, the quicker they can start competing with these other teams in the conference to get to the Super Bowl. So they have a potentially an elite defense. We saw that a couple of years ago. They just need to shore some things up. They have their running back now. They potentially have a extraordinary tight end. The receiving core, there's a lot of potential there. They're getting a lot better on the line, at least on paper. Hopefully they're better than they were last year after these signings. When a guy like that could step in, and I expect him to step in before the end of the end of his rookie year. It's usually what happens in these cases, unless Mr. Trubisky lights it up. And if he does, okay, well then you have a great problem on your hands. But him being stepping in and being pro ready, I think that can accelerate the Steelers' chances of being a contender again. So I like that. And people are comparing him to guys like Derek Carr and whatever. I don't put any limits on these guys, but if he gets to Derek Carr level, then that's a pretty good follow up to Ben Roethlisberger. But hopefully he can take it just a step above that.
And there's people that when we were talking about the Steelers could go after Derek Carr in free agency or via trade, they were sick about it. Why would we want Derek Carr? So there's a lot of high standards when it comes to the Steelers in the draft, and I respect that. Now, but I want to finish this up because my big theme here is the fact that we don't know what's on the other end. You don't know who's lurking around the corner. So I want you to jump in the BTSC DeLorean, go back to 2019, both of you. And we gave Dave Schofield so much junk and crap over his comment. It was a knee-jerk reaction. I thought this was a little too early for Deontay Johnson. But here's the thing, and we found this out right away. We found this out that Tampa, a couple picks later, Arians was all over this guy and wanted this guy. The Steelers felt a need for Deontay Johnson. Of course, he ended up with a 1,000-yard season, a Pro Bowl wide receiver. You might have some different opinions of Deontay Johnson, but the bottom line is he has had a successful pro career, and the way wide receivers are going, I expect him to get a huge contract. Maybe not in Pittsburgh. A lot of people hope it's not in Pittsburgh. Hey, if the guy is that great this year and earns that contract, then yeah, pay him the money if you can. Right. We'll worry about that later. Like Tony just said, that's going to be a good problem to have. But knowing that Tampa was right around the corner with Deontay Johnson, the Steelers, people were saying, oh, you could have gotten this guy in the 4th round. No, you can't. You can't because there's other teams scouting these guys.
Right.
How can we say, Shannon, that you can get a guy later? Because you don't know. There's 31 other teams that need wide receivers, that need quarterbacks, that need guys.
There's no way of knowing about any of this. We're all speculating about who would have been available, what round you could get them in. I mean, I felt that way about Loudermilk last year when they traded into the 5th round. I'm like, who are they trying to get in front of? Who else is wanting him when they could have got him maybe in the 6th round? But you just don't know. I want to say one thing about Pickett. You keep hearing that not only they could have waited, but talking about his limitations and everything he isn't. And, again, we all see different things. If you look at the valuations, a lot of times they're totally different. The Steelers is the ones that matter, what they think. But I'll say go back and look at Herbert when in his draft evaluations. Go back and look at Mahomes. Go back and look at Josh Allen. Now, nobody will argue that those are the 3 top young quarterbacks in the NFL. But there was questions about Herbert, about his competitiveness, his leadership, his personality. When you talked about Mahomes, they questioned his decision-making. Because, he's been better in the pros than he ever was at Texas Tech. And then if you look at Josh Allen, not only was there huge questions about the level of competition and about his accuracy, but he also, when he was 14 or something, put some tweet out there that resurfaced. And so a lot of teams wouldn't touch him. So what I'm saying is every quarterback, you don't know until they go out and they prove it. And even those guys, now Mahomes has won a Super Bowl, but until you win a Super Bowl, to me, you have to be capable of winning a championship for me to call you a franchise quarterback. And a lot of guys will get to the big game, but they can't win it. We remember Jimmy Garoppolo got there. He helped the 49ers get there. I ain't saying he took them there, but he helped them get there. And late in that game, if we remember, Emmanuel Sanders got deep. They were losing by, I think, 2 points or whatever, and Sanders got deep, and Garoppolo had a chance to hit him for a touchdown that would have won. Remember Bradshaw to Stallworth at the end of that Super Bowl? It was a very similar throw, and he missed it. That's the difference in the franchise guy and just the guy good enough to get you there. And we don't know which guys is going to turn out to be that. It might be Derek Carr, I think, has had a decent career. And I would have been happy if could have got Derek Carr, but it would have cost too much. But yeah, if Pickett can be that and then have the team around him, because you don't give up a ton. Like a lot of teams that give up the house to get some of these guys. They can't build through the draft like the Steelers still can. If they get there and he's good enough to get him that Super Bowl, like Ben got a couple, then you're a franchise guy.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody act like they know for sure that Pickett is a bum or he's great. Either way, we don't know.
Now, before I do anything else, this has been up here a while. I need to thank Tyler W. $10 a super chat for all of your draft coverage. You've earned this and more. Thank you. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Shannon saw my show, the last show on Saturday with Jeff, with Dave, and everybody was mentioning it every night when they saw me on the screen. I know I need a haircut, but that's not the thing. Shannon, what did you say I looked like?
I don't remember. You looked rough. You really did.
I'm fine with that.
You was exhausted.
And you know what? That's the best exhaustion you're going to get, because my job this weekend, when I told my family I can't do much of anything because I'm working, I was watching the NFL draft. Now, I don't get to watch it the same way because we're doing things differently. But we had that Zoom chat up, and it was great. We just had our own hangout room where we hung out between picks, and then and I felt like a quarterback. I felt like Jeff was a coach, Dave was a coach. I felt like a quarterback. I'm like, all right, here we go. Shannon, you get on and get ready to do this show. We're gonna have Chris hosting. We're gonna have Jeffrey hosting. We're gonna have Maddie hosting. We're gonna have this. You guys do this. Oh, wait. We got to move you around. Tony can't do the Saturday show, so we're going to move him to the late Friday show. And I felt like I was a quarterback calling signals. And that's what we did. And we did all those shows. I'm like, Dave, you know your job. I don't even have to tell you. You get to the breaking news. And we had a great fun weekend. But man, it was awesome. And if that's what I have to say, that, man, I worked and I was tired at the end of it, man, that's a great way to be tired when you're getting paid. No, it's not a lot, but when you're getting paid to follow the NFL draft, that feels pretty darn good. That's kind of a dream to me.
Oh yeah, there was great coverage. It was a blast. Getting that. I think everybody kind of got to meet. I got to meet a lot of our guys that I've never got to speak with or be on the show with before, and that was the most fun I've had, doing the draft, because it was my first year doing the podcast. And, everybody put in a lot of time, hours writing articles, late into the night or early in the morning. But, that's the choice that we make, because we want to do that and we love the Steelers. So, yeah, it was a blast, and I was really thankful to get to do it.
Yeah, the round table I was on, I was really impressed with Maddie and Andrew and Jeremy Betts. I felt like the fourth wheel. I'm like, they would come. They were so dialed into the draft, and they knew all these players. And I'm like, yeah, they're good. They're just. I think you got maybe a couple future stars on your hands there. So they did an excellent job. So I was really impressed by the three of them on Friday night.
All right, I am going to disagree with a longtime great contributor to the live chat, Wes Hickok. If Pickett bust, it just confirms it was a lazy draft by Colbert, because he's gone now. Here's the thing. Colbert's not exactly gone. Colbert's probably going to have some kind of executive capacity with the Steelers. And I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to allow the lazy draft. And so I don't really think it was a lazy draft. I think it was his signature on it. In fact, I kind of think that Colbert wanted to go out as the GM with a bang. So I'll disagree with you, but I'm going to respect that comment. I have no problem with the comment, but I think with a lot of these guys, I think it kind of works, and we're going to change our opinions of some of these players. I hated the Ryan Shazier pick. I talk about that all the time. Hated it. Didn't take me long to say, man, was I wrong on that one? You know why? Because I wanted something else. I wanted the greatest cornerback in the history of football, Darqueze Dennard. This guy is going to be an all-pro, a Hall of Famer. He's going to be great. Be careful what you ask for.
Right.
You just might get it. The Steelers could have got Darqueze Dennard. Why did they pass on Darqueze Dennard?
I love the Jarvis Jones pick. I was certain he was going to step right in and be the next James Harrison. Well, I was wrong about that one.
Because they do their due diligence. Man, you know why the Ravens pick Alabama guys all the time? Because Ozzie Newsome had a pipeline. You know why they're picking Michigan guys like crazy? Because the Harbaughs have that Wang connection. They're together. I mean, you don't think that John Harbaugh called up his brother Jim and said, all right, what's the deal with David Ojabo? I don't care if you love the kid. I don't care if he's like your son. I just want to flat out. Is he going to heal? Is he going to be fine? What's his work ethic? You tell me, should I take him or should I pass on him? Jim Harbaugh's going to tell him the truth because the kid's still going to get drafted. But Jim Harbaugh is going to tell his brother, yeah, trust me, take this guy. That's what the conversation had to have been. And so we have these conversations. Colbert knows a lot of coaches and athletic directors. Tomlin does too. My gosh, I'm sure Tomlin has a pipeline into Maryland. I'm sure that he talks with the coaches of Maryland because his son's on the team and he probably has a good relationship with them. And It's not because his son is the young Tomlin is telling him what to do. It's for the fact that he has familiarity with that team,
right?
With that college. You know, so they do their due diligence. One of the reasons why the Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-time Super Bowl champions because Bill Nunn Sr. knew historic black colleges and he scouted them. And he was doing it. It wasn't the Post-Gazette. Tony, do you remember was it the Pittsburgh Courier?
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Courier. Yeah.
Okay, so he was doing it for that newspaper and he knew who these guys were.
Right.
And they respected him enough to go. Chuck Noll, Art Rooney Jr. was a main scout at the time. And those guys knew to listen to this guy. There was talk at one point that Stallworth should get picked higher.
Right.
And Bill Nunn saying, you might be making a mistake. And you know what?
Right.
They doubled up on receivers that year.
Yeah, that was, you know, and you know, that was, as far as Stallworth, I mean, you know, they could have very easily panicked and picked him higher because that's obviously he deserved to be picked much higher than he was. But they had to they waited it. You know, they got some other players and you know, Jack Lambert, another Hall of Famer, and you know, they were able to get their man. But that was mainly because they trusted Bill Nunn. He saw him in person. He believed that his 40 time that was the official 40 time wasn't the 40 time that Bill Nunn recorded, because, you know, I guess when Stallworth did it, it was at a bad field or a muddy field or something like that, and then Nunn did that himself, and he timed himself and came away with a better time. So yeah, these guys do their due diligence. You know, they know. Obviously, I hate to sound like a cliche, but they know more than we do. And as far as this being a lazy draft, and I love Wes. He's a big fan of mine. I have a big ego, so I love that he's a big fan of mine. But come on, I mean, this is a big deal to draft a quarterback. I mean, you don't take that lightly. So I don't think Colbert approached this lightly. He knew, like, the fallout from this. If they don't get it right, it's going to be, you know, they're going to have to do it again in a few years. So it's not lazy to pick a quarterback. That's the biggest decision you can make as an organization, and how they approach this in the draft process showed how important they knew this was when they basically interviewed anybody who could throw a football this spring. So yeah, this wasn't a lazy draft by Colbert.
Yeah, I respect a lot of things that Wes says, and I respect this. George Pickens, new number 1 wide receiver, just saying Deontay will not get paid by Pittsburgh. I love the Pickens pick, guys. And the reason I love the Pickens pick is this guy is out there. This guy has personality. He's a little bit off the wall. And just by the stuff we're seeing. But I mean, he's wearing like a baked potato hoodie, like a baked potato foil hoodie. And he's out there, and you can tell he's gonna be a lot of fun. We also saw on our Slack channel, we saw somebody put out a tweet. I think checked it out. It was a tweet with a highlight film of him just being plain nasty and not afraid to fight. Hey,
right.
Juju wasn't afraid to absolutely crack Vontaze Burfict.
Right.
You know, we love that about Hines Ward. Now, there's a lot of people worried when they highlight package, you know, he better rein it in. Of course, he better rein it in. And we were saying that about Kendrick Green last year. But I gotta love that feistiness, man. I've got to love that fight. You think Jack Lambert? We love the fact that he was a Hall of Famer. But if Jack Lambert was on another team, we would have hated him. We would have hated Hines Ward. We would have hated Debo. Yeah, we would have hated James Harrison. We would have hated Greg Lloyd. We would have hated all those guys for good reason.
Right.
But they're black and gold, and we're going to love George Pickens for being as solid as he is. And if he's healthy, man, it's going to be beautiful. And that's the thing. You don't think that they're sending everybody down there to Georgia, to Athens, Georgia, and saying, is this guy going to be okay? Is he going to be healthy? Level with me. Because you're not going to screw with the GM of the Steelers. You're not going to screw with Mike Tomlin.
No.
Because, you know, when they come to town, especially Tomlin, when Tomlin comes to your pro day, the schools, Shannon, what do? They rule out the red carpet, don't they, Shannon?
Mm-hmm. You know, when initially I was looking at Pickens, and I said in my grading the pick article that, you know, he was kind of a one-trick pony at the moment. He's going to be able to, you know, he's great on contested catches. He's got an extra gear late. You know, he can track that ball really well. And then in them last 2 or 3 steps, he's got that ability to pull away from the cornerback. And that's what I was saying. Well, when you look back to his last healthy year where he played, he's got excellent feet. And he's a better route runner than I realized. So I think he is a much more complete receiver than I initially thought when I graded him. And I've always said, I don't want a guy that you have to motivate. I don't want a guy that you have to say, be aggressive. That's not the problem with Pickens at all. He is going to be aggressive. He's going to be banging heads. And that's what you want in a receiver, or any football player for that matter. But he plays receiver kind of like a linebacker. And you know how much I love linebackers. So he has really grown on me. And I give him a B+ grade. But if I would have seen his footwork when he was healthy, he ran a 4.47 at the combine. He's not all the way back yet from that knee injury. So he's faster than 4.47. They say he's a regular 4.4 guy. But when you see him, his quickness, it wasn't the same when he come back those 4 games. But if you see him the year before, I mean, he's got great footwork. He start, stop. He gets out of his breaks. He doesn't slow down. So, yeah, if I would have seen more about him than I did and watched more when he was healthy that junior year, I would have given him an A grade. So, yeah, I'm very excited about him, and I love that attitude.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Felicia. You know, great fan of Felicia. And you know what? I'm disagreeing with some people, and I have no problem disagreeing with you. And if you want to disagree with me, by all means do it, because that's the glory of the show, having an opinion and not being afraid to say it. And Wes even mentioned earlier, Wes said, you know, bad. I didn't bring it up, but bad. It's not that I completely disagree with you. If they would have traded up, I would have lost my mind. I would have lost my mind if they traded up to get Kenny Pickett. And I have called Kenny Pickett fool's gold on this show and other shows. Not in the last couple months, but I was worried about the Pickett thing because of 1 year. But I'm coming around based on what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, and how much scouting they put in this. Nobody has had more Kenny Pickett time than Mike Tomlin. So nobody. You know who's had more? His coach. The coach at Pitt. He had more time. You know, Matt Cannon also recruited this guy. But Felicia says, I'm going to wear my big girl panties and say I'm still not that on board with Pickett. Good for you, Felicia. Yes, say that. And I respect that. I may like him in time to come, but it ain't now. Sorry. I don't switch gears that quick. Good. Good for you, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Just because he's a Pittsburgh Steeler, you don't have to love him now. You're allowed to criticize the Steelers. You're allowed to criticize all of them. This is a lot of calm lazy. I'm not going to agree with it, but you can go ahead and say that because that's your opinion, and that's what makes this show, this network, and this country beautiful. Joseph says, trust the process. That's something I've been preaching. Trust the process is fun, and we've had a good process. But you don't have to agree with the process right now. You could be skeptical. You could be completely skeptical. I had friends, we went to see Independence Day on July 2nd, 1996. And they mocked me when I said, you know what? Will Smith, in about another 10, 15 years, is going to be one of the greatest actors around, and he's going to win some Oscars. Now, Will Smith has done some other things that right now can be number one, but that's beside the point. They laughed at me. Comic actor, you don't know anything about movies, Bryan. And that's what I heard. And they mocked me for the next 30 minutes. We were having some drinks out on a deck, and they mocked me for that forever. But it was my opinion. Guess what? I ended up being right. I've also, like Tony, I said Jarvis Jones could be a Hall of Fame pick. This guy is awesome. This is great. I wasn't on BTSC at the time, but I would have sung the praises of Jarvis Jones. Boy, we were wrong. And that's what happens because these guys are clay right now. You've got to figure out who they're going to be. They've got to be in the right system, and you've got to be able to. They've got to be able to continue the process, Shannon.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's seen when they picked Connor Hayward. You knew they were picking him. It was a given. Now, when was it 6th round or 7th round? But it was going to happen. But you know, I've heard a lot of criticism about the Steelers taking him. That, you know, they're trying to appease Cameron and all this stuff. But if you will watch his highlights, it's funny. You say, well, he don't look that fast, and you know he's too short to be a full-time tight end. And there's all these different criticisms. And I've talked about his value as a team player, and he has that Hayward mentality that, you know, they're hard-headed, junkyard dog type players. But if you get a chance to watch the Michigan State running back Walker, and I can't remember where he went, but if you watch any of his highlight packages on his big runs and successful runs, you'll see Hayward throwing a block. I mean, like there's one he's blocking Hutchinson from Michigan one-on-one, and he springs Walker for a touchdown. The kid is hard-nosed, and he can block. And whether he's a fullback, a short yardage running back, a tight end 3, he's the kind of guy that you have it on your depth chart towards the back of your bench, you know, on special teams. He has value. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what more can you ask from a 6th-round draft pick? Now, I mean, I keep hearing people complain about him, but who was there in that 6th round that, you know, that you just guarantee has more value than Hayward? Because Hayward is so versatile. He can do so many things.
Right.
And he has a Pittsburgh Steeler mentality. So that's one that's really kind of been aggravating to me because, again, we're talking in absolutes a lot. Like, oh, it's nepotism and he wasn't worth it. You don't know that.
They
When you see
don't-
what he's accomplished, you know, he looks like he is worth that.
Look what Mike Tomlin said. It was not a Cam's business why we drafted him. So I mean,
Yeah.
they weren't factoring that in.
And they made sure that they did not contact Cam. Cam had to find it out from his brother. And I like that. They don't care about Cam Hayward's opinion on drafting his brother. He works for the Steelers. You know, Cam, they're not doing this just to make Cam happy. You could say the same thing about Derek Watt. You know, they didn't bring Derek Watt to keep TJ Watt. They brought Derek Watt in because they thought he would have value. Randy Fichtner didn't know what to do with him. I guarantee you, and for those saying right now that, you know, they don't use a fullback anyways, so why draft the guy? Don't you think if they're going to draft this guy, they're going to think of what to do with him? And guess what they did? You know who came out to do the press conference? And Dave Schofield and Jeff Hartman were saying, hey, wait to see who they bring out. And they brought out tight end coach Alfredo Roberts. That tells you what they're going to do with the guy. He's an H-back. Frank Wycheck. Remember Frank Wycheck for the Tennessee Titans? What if he's a guy like that?
Yeah.
You don't know if he's going to be around in the 7th round because other people can go ahead and take him. I saw him in the 5th round with other teams.
Yeah, and just because he was drafted, they haven't guaranteed him a spot.
Right.
He's going to have to come in and show what he's capable of, which I think he will. But they just handed him that spot. And you can't say what the Steelers done with Ben because this is going to be a totally different offense. And so, you know, there's no way to say, well, that he was a wasted pick because, one, he's not guaranteed a spot. And 2, it's a totally different offense. And none of us know the answer yet.
All right. So another thing to go ahead and look at here is the fact that Dave Schofield says this all the time, and I love that he brings this up. A 7th round pick to Dave Schofield is just an undrafted free agent that you want to make sure that you get. So that's what the 7th round pick is. So they bring in Chris Oladokun. You know why they brought in Chris Oladokun? For a couple of reasons. They brought him in, one, because what if he impresses? They really liked him. They went to his pro day. They checked him out. If he impresses, that makes Mason Rudolph expendable to try to trade. Doesn't mean they're going to do that. Doesn't mean they're definitely going to get a 6th or a 5th or a 7th. Maybe there's no takers, but that gives you another guy. If he ends up being okay and he ends up on the practice squad, guess what they don't have to do before they play a team with a running quarterback? Bring up a fast kid, sign a fast kid for a week to be on the practice squad. Right. So you have a kid with wheels, a guy that can move around and pass, that he could simulate your Lamar Jacksons. He could simulate those guys if he stays around. That's why they wanted to guarantee that they got him. And for everybody that was upset and thinking, oh, yeah, Isaiah Payomal was going to go. He's definitely going to sign with the Steelers. No, I told everybody the only way he's coming to the Steelers if the Steelers draft him. You know why? Because Troy Polamalu doesn't love him. Doesn't love the Steelers right now. He's not completely divorced from the Steelers. It's getting a little bit better, but he's not in love with the Steelers.
Right.
So, you know, that's the thing to talk about too. Shane Giggles, 10 plus years of no playoff wins. No, don't trust the process. Last 3 were blowout losses. No, don't trust the process. 500 season is still an F. All right. That's your opinion. What do you want, Shane? The question that I ask you is how many teams have won Super Bowls in the last 10 years? You know, you trust the process because you're continually competing.
Right.
And you are in the playoffs. You're not getting the desired effect. I bet you if you were the Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions or teams like that, you would be trusting this process. You would want this process.
Right.
So I'm going to continue saying trust the process. You don't have to agree. And I'm cool with that. But as here, Sean Manahan says 10 plus years. Steelers went to the AFC Championship in 2016. You know, there were things that happened. Kept them out of other AFC Championship games. You know, they lost in Denver with a skeleton squad because everybody was hurt. So, you know, that's what you look at. We're going to wrap things up here. So I'm going to ask Shannon and Tony, what was your favorite part of draft weekend when it comes to the Steelers? Shannon, I'll start with you.
I was happy for Pickett because of his emotion and how badly he wanted to be in Pittsburgh. I always say that there's value, hidden value for guys who want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. It shows up when you're negotiating that second contract. Not only are they, you know, influential in the community, but when it comes to negotiations, it matters. They care about the legacy. It's not just, it's big business, but it means something a little more. So I was really excited about his selection. But I got most excited about Calvin Austin III because I've been saying that they needed an influx of speed, of game-changing speed, splash play ability, and I think they got it in a guy in a position of need at slot receiver. So I guess that was probably my favorite moment that I was most excited about was that selection.
Tony.
Oh, it was. If Pickett becomes a star, I'm never going to forget where I was when he was drafted. I was at Industry in Lawrenceville with a bunch of my friends watching the draft after bowling, and you know, you heard claps and you heard some people going, "They don't need a quarterback." So I'm always going to remember where I was. I mean, it's a historical thing, you know, to see a quarterback drafted. That's a big deal. And as a writer now and a podcaster, I'm a lot of my what I like is about the story. I like the story. I like to write about these kind of things. And I remember where I was when Ben Roethlisberger was drafted. I remember where I was when I heard that they picked him. I was listening to the radio at work. I didn't hear it live, but I was doing manager stuff. But when I got back, I missed it live. But when I got back to the radio, I was like, oh wow, they picked a quarterback. And now I'm always going to remember where I was when they picked Kenny Pickett. So that was my favorite part, just to see everybody reacting in different ways to that pick. And it's such a big deal when a team drafts a quarterback because it means so much, good or bad. It means a lot. If it works, then I mean you're setting yourself up. If it doesn't work, then that's a story too. Not a great story, but that's a story.
Absolutely. So I definitely appreciate it. Hey, we're not always going to agree on this. We have different levels of fandom, but I love the fact that anybody has the passion to disagree. Man, don't stop disagreeing if that's how you feel about it. Just like I'm not going to stop being that homer that is trying to paint the fence in a pretty color and tell you how awesome it is. Because that's who we are. And I love it. I don't care whether you're for it. I don't care whether you're against it. All I care about is that you're here talking Steelers. You feel it in your heart to have an opinion. And I love anybody that has an opinion. Like I said, disagree with me all you want. And I'm not going to be a jerk about it, but I might argue it. But I'm going to respect the fact that you have no problem saying it. So with that being said, we are going to get on out of here. Check out BTSC for all of your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. This is going to be some awesome fallout. Hopefully these guys are superstars. Hopefully Kenny Wood has a mullet for their new logo. You know, hopefully this guy, there's 7 gold jackets coming out of this draft class. It's not going to happen. I know it. But that's what the goal is. Hope springs eternal with a new draft. And the guys you don't expect sometimes sneak up on you. and you're like, wow, I didn't catch that one. And then the guys that you expect to be great sometimes aren't. So that's it. Yep. Shane giggles. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I have no problem drinking the Kool-Aid. And that's what we got to do. Do you want us to sit here and just talk about how everything sucks? We can, but I don't think everything sucks. I'm feeling pretty good about this. So check out BTSC. Check out Shannon White. I'm going to join him on the curtain call. Jeffrey Benedict's going to have the week off. So we are going to have Joey Christopoulos on the show talking about the Steelers draft from an outside perspective. Check out Tony on Friday night with the 6-pack. And check out me with the various shows that I'm on as well. Check out all these other guys. So with that being said, thank you. And just when you think you've got all the answers, Tony Defeo,
we keep changing the questions.
Shannon White, give it to me. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for those hypocycloids. Doesn't matter whether you have a good opinion or a bad opinion. Have that opinion. I love you, BTSC Nation. All of you.